magic trick. Teams that throw 5 interceptions and have been trailing by more than 2 touchdowns had a 1-373-1 record since 1933. They're now 2 and forever. If you're on the Lions, stay on Lions. Also, news of the day from Chicago after another sleepwalk on offense. And Tim Kalishaw, Cowboys are all about the star. How did they fail to cover that one from 93 million miles away? Let's go around the horn.
Can't see.
One, 2, 3, 4, 5 Jared Goff interceptions. Still, no problem. Lions 26, Texans 23. A 16-point comeback from 23-7 at half. Houston unable to capitalize on all those turnovers. C.J. Stroud said, "It's on me." Does it all make you believe more in the Lions or blame Stroud and the Texans? Around the horn to Bill Barnwell.
I'm blaming the Texans. Why would I believe more in the Lions for turning the ball over 5 times and winning? This is 100% on the Houston Texans, who turned those 5 turnovers into 10 points. Tony, we have been talking about the issues with this team for weeks. It is not just a C.J. Stroud thing. It is an offensive line thing. Last week when they played the Jets, C.J. Stroud he was running for his life the entire game. This week, better pass protection, but the running game averaged 2 yards per carry when they could have been drying this thing out and winning the entire game as it went along. They were not able to win the game when they had the opportunity early. They left the door open. The offensive line is breaking this Texans offense we were so excited about heading into the season.
Pablo Torre, around the horn to you.
Yeah, it's the Texans, Tony, because something happens at halftime, it turns out. C.J. Stroud goes in, maybe looking like Superman, as he did in that first half, and he comes out having scored 0 touchdowns since week 6 now, okay, in the second half of these games. He had no touchdowns in the second half of this game. They're the second worst in the NFL at scoring points after halftime. It's brutal. And it's an indictment not just, of course, of the O-line and of Stroud, but, of course, of DeMeco Ryans, who's the coach. I don't know how you explain why after you go to the locker room, you are that much worse this consistently. And so when you believe in the Lions, as I do, the team that's playing best in the NFL, you think to yourself, okay, what went wrong for the Texans? The same thing that's gone wrong every second half for several weeks.
Harry Lyles Jr. around the horn to you.
While I agree with Bill and Pablo, I'm going to give the Lions credit because in the previous 375 times that we've seen this, Tony, as you mentioned, one team has actually been able to accomplish this. So, yes, they left the door open, but the Lions still had to jump through the door, and that's what they did. They took advantage of something that the Texans have been bad at this season, which is second halves. They don't hold leads. They have a minus 59-point differential, which is the second worst in the NFL in second halves. And for teams that had a minus 3 turnover differential, their records they're now 2-16. In the NFL this season. Those 2 wins have both come against the Houston Texans. The other time was in Week 7 against the Green Bay Packers. So the Lions got things done when they had to. Jared Goff, as bad as he was, the 5 interceptions that he had were terrible. He was 5 of 6 in the fourth quarter for 55 yards and a touchdown. He got the job done when he had to. And the margins, like, my God, the field goal. We're not talking about the field goal enough. Like, the margin in between the goalposts and the football was literally thinner than the percentage of the teams that had previously accomplished it. So I'm going to give them credit.
Tim Kalishaw.
Give all the points to Harry and me for being on the correct side of the coin on this one. I know a good blue and silver team when I see one. Occasionally I see one that isn't. I know, and the Lions are not just the best blue and silver team in the country, they're the best team in the NFL. They showed it at halftime. Dan Campbell came out, told Melissa what they were going to do, told her while it was actually happening, according to TV, although I think that might have been taped a few seconds earlier. But the Lions do stop the run. They shut down Mixon. They got Stroud into trouble. And even, when Goff threw a couple more interceptions, one of them was more like a punt. You throw it 50 yards down the field, the other team gets the ball, not that big a deal. But Amon-Ra St. Brown, you can't hold him down all day. And the Lions didn't give up on the run. Montgomery and Gibbs kept coming at him, and they're too much for him.
Bill Barnwell, back to you. Maybe that was what I was trying to get at, that in order to be one of the best teams in the league, you have to prove you can win in different ways. This was a game that they won that maybe – no, you're shaking your head. No, please.
So if they throw 5 interceptions next week, you're going to be like, oh, they had that experience from when they threw 5 interceptions last week. Yeah. They're going to know what they're doing.
Don't overcome it.
I can know enough to know when to shut my mouth and give the points to Hardball. We'll move on. Eagles 34, Cowboys 6. The sun, the literal sun in Cowboys Stadium is what we start with. It's affecting plays on every drive, but somehow always worse for the home team. Fans asking how Jerry could not see this from 93 million miles away. And CeeDee Lamb is asking for curtains.
Are you in favor of curtains?
Yes, 1,000%.
By the way, we know where the sun's going to be when we decide to flip the coin or not. So we do know where the damn sun's going to be.
So there was that, but there was also Michael Parsons.
Mike can leave and go wherever he wants, but guys, I kind of feel bad for guys like Zach Martin and guys who might be on their last year on their way out. Guys who might be on their last year on their way out, because that's what I wanted to hold the trophy for. You want to win games and do great things with those type of legends who put in more time and work than Mike McCarthy ever did.
Tim Kalishaw, this is your account. Cowboys now have astral problems.
Not my account.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. To go along with football problems, which seems to be the biggest right now.
They're all big, Tony. The sun is big. All these things are big. Micah Parsons, though, stands out to me more because the sun isn't going away. The sun's going to be here. Jerry's not going to pull the cord. He could. They have curtains. They're not going to use them. And by the way, Jalen Hurts had trouble with the sun yesterday. It does go both ways. But having said that, Micah Parsons saying what he did, that's just a Cowboy understanding the situation in Dallas. The head coach has a certain level of irrelevance. Yeah, Mike McCarthy, okay, over there. I'm not really worried about him. He's not going to be here next year anyway. I'm going to go get my money from Jerry Jones next year. That's how this system works here. It's a terrible system. We've seen the flaws in it for 28 years, about to be 29, and that's not going to change, sadly.
Aaron Lyles Jr.
To me, this just makes what was already a bad situation worse. Like the Dak Prescott injury. It's why I said last week they need to tear this thing down and start over, or at least try to find the building blocks to this. Now you've got Micah Parsons talking about, well, that's above my pay grade, whether or not the coach should be here. Dude, what are you talking about? If that's your guy, you have his back, 1. 2, we're talking about one of the highest paid receivers in the NFL asking for curtains to be put up, and the owner's response is, well, we know that's where the sun's going to be. We're not going to break the building down and rebuild it, which maybe, you know what, you shouldn't do that with your billion-dollar stadium, but you know what you can do it with? Your football team, and that's what you need to do. The Dallas Cowboys, like, this feels even ridiculous for them. Like, I don't even know at what point, where do you even start with him? Where do you even start?
Pablo Torre.
Yeah, you start at the top, though. I think Tim is right in his diagnosis. It's always convenient, by the way, when the most obvious thing about a sports story is literally the most obvious thing in the universe, right? So the sun, as a protagonist in this story, is a good one because it sort of encapsulates a larger micro set of things, like the Caitlin Collar story on ESPN.com about how Jerry Jones is still doing these tours, right, of the practice facility, getting in the way of the football. All of this feels like a metaphor for stubbornness and some entertainment instinct getting in the way of football. And so, yes, there are many reasons why the Cowboys keep losing these games. There are many reasons why they have not won at home this season, but it seems like Jerry Jones has to be reason A number 1, just like the sun.
And Bill Barnwell.
Yeah, I wouldn't bring up the entertainment instinct in talking about these Cowboys teams, having watched that game yesterday. I think a lot of fans would have preferred being blinded by the sun for the entirety of the contest as opposed to just a few moments there in Dallas. Every offseason addition the Cowboys made on Sunday failed. Mike Zimmer, the defense has been a mess. They had no answers for the Eagles, who scored 34 points. Ezekiel Elliott, who they brought back, fumbled inside the 5-yard line after being brought in specifically to run the ball inside the 5-yard line. Eric Kendricks, their top defensive addition, was run by Saquon Barkley so fast he couldn't even react. Jerry Jones is trying to pretend he has a handle on this team, on what's wrong. The reality is he does not.
Tim Kalishaw will give you the last word here.
It should be mentioned quickly that early in the game, the Cowboys recognized all the great Cowboys with military experience, led by, of course, the coach with the hat, Tom Laundry, as it said.
You spelled Tom Landry's name wrong? Are you serious on that?
Tom Laundry.
Is that right?
Tom Laundry.
Yes.
Just rooting for laundry.
Clean it up, Cowboys.
You can dry the laundry with the sun.
we'll move on. Patriots 19, Bears 3. Chicago hasn't scored a touchdown in 24 possessions. Matt Eberflus on David Kaplan, ESPN Radio this morning, said they have evidence on tape of good football this year and will go from there. This afternoon, announcing Caleb Williams will remain the starter. Whether that was even a question. Bill Barnwell, around the horn to you. If the Bears are looking at changes, where should they start?
They should start with the offensive coaching staff, which is not giving Caleb Williams answers, and he has melted down as a result. He was sacked 9 times yesterday by a team that had 8 sacks in their 6 prior games combined. And some of that is on the offensive line, which is injured. Some of it is on the coaching staff. Some of it is on Caleb Williams himself. He has the highest off-target rate of any quarterback in football when he's not pressured so far this year. We're seeing him lapse into the same habits we saw at USC. He's playing hero ball. He doesn't trust the scheme, doesn't trust the offensive line, and frankly, I don't blame him.
Pablo Torre.
Yeah, I don't blame him either, except that I want to hold this team to the standard of their own optimism, right? Like the story heading in was that he has everything he needs except for maybe an O-line that's banged up, right? He has receivers, he has weapons, all of that is true. And so Caleb Williams, to me, just isn't good enough to overcome a basic set of circumstances that, yes, is worse than we thought, but shouldn't be this bad, Tone. It just shouldn't be this bad. And so for me, yes, you blame everybody, but I think Caleb Williams, you have to wonder, why is it that the Patriots, the team they played, right, their story was Drake May cannot handle being behind an offensive line that porous. Well, turns out Caleb Williams is the guy who they shouldn't be throwing out there because he's the one who can't handle that kind of a pressure.
So you're putting
in
this
a football
on the
sense and in a
quarterback
larger
as well.
sense, too.
Harry Lyles Jr., is this about
I have
Caleb
to at
Williams?
this
Is this
point.
about coaching?
Yeah, no, see, it's a combination of the fact that you do have 4 offensive linemen, 4 out yesterday. And yes, this coaching staff has not put him in the position that he needs to succeed. To me, coming into this season, the thing with the Chicago Bears was we heard a lot of people say, well, he's going to be in a great position, one of the best that any rookie quarterback is going to be in. And I still believe that to be true. When you look at everything that he had in front of him, nobody was saying that they were going to be a playoff team, but the thing that you wanted to see this season from Caleb Williams and the Bears specifically were those moments every few weeks where like, hey, that's why we thought that guy was the guaranteed number 1 pick. That's going to be our franchise quarterback. And you've seen that in moments. However, this has only gotten worse in the last month. And because of that, I think you have to look at the offensive coaching staff.
You showed a sack there where Caleb is clearly holding the ball too long. But as that game goes along, you watch the sacks. They're happening in 2 seconds. The Patriots are blitzing. They have no chance of picking these things up. He shouldn't be out there if they can't put better players in front of him.
Bench him because the team is not.
I would bench him for his own safety and for his own education. That he's not. You don't benefit from that kind of.
There's
play.
good plays on film. And the team got to 4 wins with those. There's some tough plays on film. That stat you were talking about, Bill Barnwell, where he's last in the league. But there was one thing on film that Bears fans are circling right now, and they're unhappy about it. That was the Patriots were the ones to help Williams up on a play that Fox showed going to break as well. Taking a break here by ourselves next. Commanders 27, the oldest trick in the book, and they got rookie defensive tackle Johnny Newton to jump off sides to seal it. Russell Wilson, 3 passing touchdowns and a road home win. Look at the terrible towels in Washington as Pittsburgh gets to 7-2. Washington falls to 7-3. It was the day's best matchup, Tim. What do you buy? What do you sell?
That's a tough finish for Washington, but a 1-point loss isn't bad. I'm buying the Steelers, the continued resurgence, rejuvenation of Russell Wilson. He's even hitting big plays, big passes to Mike Williams. Maybe Aaron Rodgers should have practiced with him with the Jets. Maybe that would have helped things earlier this season. But I like the Steelers staying ahead of Baltimore, doing what
Harry
they're doing.
Lyles Jr.
Tony, I'm buying the experience of the Steelers being the difference in this football game. Mike Tomlin is now 26-6 in his career against rookie quarterbacks. That's the second best all-time in NFL history. And also, yeah, I'd go with Tim on the emergence of Russell Wilson as well. He's the first Steelers quarterback to have 3 touchdown passes since Ben Roethlisberger in 2021. You need offense to complement that defense.
First since Ben Roethlisberger in 2021. I don't know if that goes back far enough for me. Pablo Torre, how about you?
Yeah, I buy the resume of Mike Tomlin. 17 seasons now, 0 losing seasons is going to look like after the season's over. An incredible master of the chop challenge. Whatever quarterback you give him, he makes a masterpiece, a delicious meal out of it. And I also buy that George Pickens is the last person on earth I'd like to be stiff-armed by, Tony. He looks like a Mortal Kombat character. He's jumping, he's putting his hand into people's necks. It's
Excuse me? You're doing what? Okay. Bill Barnwell, how about you?
To me, this is the most complete team in all of football right now. And you saw this was a team effort. You get the muff punt for a touchdown on special teams. Russ averaging more yards per completion since he's come in than any quarterback in football. But of course, this is about the defense and about what they did to Jaden Daniels. Tony, they finally stopped Washington on 4th down. They were 11 for 11 all year.
Did they, though?
Did
they? How is there not a review of the spot there? I can understand you can say he didn't make it, but you got to move the ball another yard.
They got off the field.
I don't know why you're losing points to that. I apologize, Bill. You shouldn't
run.
get these points to that.
That's fine. I was not in New York for that verdict, but certainly.
Buy or sell Bill Barnwell's hot take that the Steelers are the most complete team in the NFL. Tim Cowlishaw, buy or sell Bill?
You call yourself a complete team when you're not as good as the Lions and you don't have an offense like theirs. They're not the best.
Harry Lyles Jr.?
They're solid.
Buy or sell Bill?
And for that reason, I will buy.
Bob Latore, buy or sell Bill?
yeah, I like the Lions. I sell Bill.
Sell Bill. Sounds like a Quentin Tarantino movie. We'll move on. Buy or sell two. College. The macro playoff omics, if you will, in college. Mississippi over Georgia. Fans on the field before it was over. Georgia Tech knocking Miami out of the rank of undies. But only after this hit knocked the jacket off this yellow jacket. That was scary. Indiana still perfect, beating Michigan. Jalen Milroe running all over LSU in the face of Omar Bradley. But how about how BYU survived death twice? The timeout given while the 4th down play was about to end. And then on the next play, defensive holding penalty called while the 4th down play was getting sacked. Utah's AD was apoplectic about this after the game, said the game was stolen from them. He was fined $40K, but that's what keeps BYU at the top of the Big 12 over hard charge in Colorado. Harry Lyles Jr., what was the biggest development from college this weekend?
Tony, it's probably the SEC chaos, but hit me with that home cooking button because I'm going to talk about the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. They had their 6th win since 2022 when they are an underdog of 9 points or more under Brent Key. It's the most in FBS. The way that he took these two quarterbacks who have very different skill sets and was able to beat Miami was huge. Impressive coaching job by Brent Key.
The development side of that, as far as the big picture, is about Miami, though. Does that one loss to you throw it all up in the air in the conference?
They're still in the driver's seat, but I think that the ACC is only going to be a one-bid conference in this first year of the 12-team
Bob
playoff.
Latore.
But this is why I sell Utah's AD, Tony. You're talking about delusional homerism. It's not just the fact that, look, there was no clear, obvious evidence that that defensive holding call was a bad call. It's the fact that he showed up at that press conference as the athletic director and basically threatened the Big 12 into saying, we apologize to Utah, we bend to you. No. Utah, beggars cannot be choosers, A. And B, you immediately apologized for it. Either go all in or,
Wait, I'm confused. Do you not feel that was defensive holding, or do you not feel that a timeout called
the refs
6
got
seconds
it right
into a play?
to me. The refs got it right to me, Tony. That was not obvious.
I don't know if I've ever seen a timeout. They may have had it before, but it took 6 seconds into the play. Bill Barnwell, around the horn to you.
BYU's win mattered the most because it actually matters in terms of the playoffs. Miami losing, they're still going to get in. Georgia losing, they're still probably going to get in. The Big 12 is going to be a one-bid conference, and so winning here had to matter. And by the way, Utah, I know they complained about the calls. I think the calls were bad, but the second half of the game, they went punt, interception, punt, 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 punt. You can't do that and expect to win a
Tim
period.
Cowlishaw.
And just to clear up this, Miami's still in the driver's seat. Miami's still going to get in. Miami's second in the ACC to the SMU Mustangs. The only undefeated team.
Here's another one of those.
ACC team. A team that will beat Miami.
Well, that's what it comes down
they
to,
get to
right?
play there. Yes.
Still teams in control of their own destiny, though, right? And you can play in the conference. You got to win. Lyles, Tori, thanks for your time today. But we have a Cowlishaw-Barnwell showdown next.
Ooh.
And that camera shot brought to you by Jerry Jones. Showdown and the one and only blocked. That's how Kansas City invents another way to remain undefeated. 9-0 is the best start in the Mahomes era, but they've trailed in 8 of 9 games. Never before in the history of the NFL has a team had a profile like that. Tim, On the greatness to luck scale, where was yesterday's KC win?
This was so far over on the luck scale that I'm starting to actually worry about the 9-0 Chiefs. They're going to believe nothing they do is going to keep them from winning football games, and that's not true.
Bill Barnwell.
Yeah, this was pure luck. 1 for 4 in the red zone. Get the Broncos in position to win. First time a team has blocked a field goal this short on the final play of the fourth quarter since 1999.
Is that true? Since and it starts with the 19, now we're talking. Bill Barnwell with a strong performance today. Now facing.
Time for the Giants, unfortunately, to move on from Daniel Jones, who was a mess yesterday in Germany. On a 3rd-and-1 flea flicker, 2 receivers open, which is good because there were only 2 people on the route. Doesn't throw the ball to either of them. And the Giants have to coax him into throwing deep, something he has not done. 11 completions, 20 or more yards in the air since the start of last season. Guys like Nick Mullins, Aiden O'Connell have more than Daniel Jones throwing deep. The offense is inefficient. They badly miss Saquon Barkley, and there's a $23 million guarantee waiting for injury next year, suggesting it's time to move on from Daniel Jones.
Bill Barnwell, career win number 14. Thanks, guys. See you tomorrow.